And on Radio 4 now, Open Country. Helen Marks in the Cotswolds finding out about the background of a famous poem. I'm in one of those lovely little tree-studded villages that you get in the North Cotswolds, where you look at the houses and they're built of that honey-coloured stone, and the roofs, you have those stone tiles. It's very distinctive, very, very pretty. This particular settlement is Adlestrop. Adlestrop. That name has a familiar ring because one afternoon of heat, the express train drew up here unwantedly. It was late June. Now, 100 years ago, in June 1914, on the eve of the First World War, the English poet Edward Thomas found his steam train pulled up here unexpectedly, and he just stopped and he listened to the sounds of the summer countryside all around him. And for this week's Open Country, I am going to explore that particular special moment in time and the way that it's resonated ever since. And I'm going to start that in the company of Ian Morton, who's with the Edward Thomas Fellowship, and with Ralph Price, who lives in the village of Adlestrop. And we arranged to meet at the bus stop, which rather wonderfully now has the sign from the former railway line that Edward Thomas would have been travelling on. So there we have the wooden bus shelter and Adlestrop. When was this put here, Ralph?
That would be following the closure of the station, and that was closed to passenger traffic in 1966. We asked if we could have the station silent seat, and the old British Railway said yes, we could have one. There were two, one on each platform, but they said we could have one. We weren't allowed to fetch it from the station site, which would have been easy. We had to fetch it all the way from Honeybourne in Worcestershire, where they took it to.
And it's very special because of the poem Adlestrop. So Ian,
Yep.
Would you read that for us?
Okay.
We're standing doing this on quite a cold winter's day, surrounded by birdsong and the sounds of the landscape as we have it now. Tractors, cars going back and forth.
Adlestrop. Yes, I remember Adlestrop, the name, because one afternoon of heat the express drew up there unwontedly. It was late June. The steam hissed, someone cleared his throat. No one left and no one came on the bare platform. What I saw was Adlestrop, only the name, and willows, willow herb and grass, and meadow sweet and haycocks dry, no whit less still and lonely fair than the high cloudlets in the sky. And for that minute a blackbird sang, closer by, and round him mistier, farther and farther, all the birds of Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire.
And that he stopped here was pure serendipity, wasn't it?
It was. The poem is actually based on 3 stops. He stopped here in Camden, in a place I think it's called Colwall, and he always carried a notebook, and he made notes at the 3 stations. So that was in June 1914. But he didn't get round to writing the poem until January 1915, when he started writing poetry. And he really pulled the 3 together. And I think he chose Adlestrop because it's such a lovely English name. And it fits, doesn't it, in the poem? The other 2 wouldn't quite work.
And he was a nature writer in prose before he did the poetry, so he had a good understanding of the landscape that he would have been travelling through and seeing.
That was his strength. He was a nature writer and had written many books, and lovely, lovely walking books. And he came to poetry later in life through his friendship through a man called Robert Frost, the famous American poet.
We'll find out more about Edward Thomas in just a moment, but let's concentrate on Adlestrop. So Ralph, for you, it's your family been here a long time.
Yes, that's right. Well, my grandfather, he worked on what's called the Permanent Way, which is the actual railway line. So he was maintaining all that. And then as we grew up, my father got a job on Adlestrop Station. So he was the porter at Adlestrop Station. Our growing up time, brother and myself, that was our second home, Adlestrop Station, and we literally did everything down there.
All gone now.
All gone now, I'm afraid.
But the line that Edward Thomas was travelling on?
Still there.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the London Paddington to Hereford line still. The trains still run, there's just no station. The station was demolished when passenger traffic was stopped, and gradually everything was taken away. The only thing that was left were the platforms, and they probably stayed for about 10 years after the closure date. But then people on the railways noticed that people were being inquisitive and trying to get on there to see where the station was.
Because of the Adlestrop
because
in the
of the poem. And then they noticed that, and of course they came in and they removed the platforms, and now nothing left at all.
So the people who want to come and remember the poem and the inspiration behind it now come to the bus stop.
That's
Not quite so romantic, but it's important that it's here.
That's right. That's right. They all come to the bus stop and they read the Edward Thomas poem there. And if I'm about on the garden, I usually end up talking to people a lot about Adlestrop Station.
It's great for people, and then they have that direct connection with it. Because the poem, as I was saying, does have such resonance for people now, 100 years later. So for Edward Thomas, this wasn't his normal stomping ground, was it?
No, he was on his way to Dimmock to meet his new friend, Robert Frost, and the train did stop here. It probably wasn't an express train, but that makes the poem all the more better.
Why has the poem stayed, so popular now? I heard it was like the third most popular poem on Poetry Please, for example. Why now?
I think it's always been popular. His work has never been out of print. I think it's so understandable, and in a way it recalls, in an old England. If you were of generation that travelled on the old slam door trains or the trains that stopped. Modern trains are sort of hermetically sealed, but the old trains, you could hear these noises, you could hear the engine. If it's stuck to the station, you could hear someone cough. Probably the nearest thing now is you're stuck on a commuter train outside London Bridge or something, but I think it's so easily accessible. You can understand it, you can form the pictures in your head, and then all of a sudden it just drifts into this lyricism and everybody can understand the bird song, so you can form the pictures in your head very quickly, and I think that's why people love it.
It's more though, isn't it? There's more to the poem than maybe meets the ear when you hear it, because of when it was written and when it was published.
Yes, it was written in 15. Edward had decided to join up. He was 38, so he didn't have to join, which is interesting. But it wasn't published until after his death, so he never saw the poem in print.
So it was published in 1917?
1917.
And he
died in April 17 at the opening of the Battle of Arras. He was killed by a passing shell. It just didn't damage him, but it seems to have sucked all the airs out of his lung. It's quite a common way of death.
And centenary to celebrate.
Centenary to celebrate it, and the village wanted to do something to recognise that, and with their lovely poem, and so Dimmock poets are involved. They'll be coming up on June the 24th. Mm-hmm. They're having a day here. Well, I had big ideas of a steam train, but I got in touch with several of the people who operate steam trains, but it was not in there. They could not afford to do it. Got talking to First Great Western, and we do have a special centenary train that will be pausing in both directions, from Oxford to Morton Marsh to Oxford, and it will pause in the old Adlestrop station site, and someone very special on board that train will read the Edward Thomas poem Adlestrop.
I'm going to leave Ian Morton and Ralph Price here chatting, standing underneath the oak tree beside the Adlestrop bus stop, and I'm going to head out across country because it would be lovely to get a bigger picture of what this landscape is like, and I'm going to do that in the company of Janet Deller, who is a walks leader and a voluntary Cotswold warden.
That's correct,
Janet,
yes.
right. And this landscape for walking, waymarked trails, bridle paths, is it good? Is it welcoming?